the Prince Islands, alternatively written as Princes Islands in which the princes are plural. Or Kar plus or minus R plus or minus El Adalar in Turkish. Officially just Adalar, are an archipelago off the coast of Istanbul, Turkey, in the Sea of Marmara. The islands constitute the Adalar district of Istanbul Province. The mayor of the Adalar district is Atilla Aytaç section. They consist of 4 larger islands, Bar 1/4 Ya 1/4 Kada with an area of 5.46 km 2, Heybeliada with an area of 2.4 km 2, Burgazada with an area of 1.5 km 2, Kar plus or minus Nala plus or minus Ada with an area of 1.3 km 2, and 5 much smaller ones, Sedef Adası plus or minus with an area of 0.157 km 2, Yassıada plus or minus Ada with an area of 0.05 km 2, Sivriada with an area of 0.05 km 2, Kara plus or minus K Adası plus or minus with an area of 0.006 km 2, and Tavşan Adası plus or minus with an area of 0.004 km 2. Tourism and transport. During the summer months the Princesa Euro unregistered trademark islands are popular destinations for day trips from Istanbul. As there is no traffic on the islands, the only transport being horse and cart, they are incredibly peaceful compared with the city of Istanbul. They are just a short ferry ride from Istanbul, with ferries departing from Bostanka plus or minus, Kartal and Maltepe on the Asian side, and from Kabatali on the European side. Most ferries call and turn at the 4 largest of the 9 islands, Kar plus or minus Nala plus or minus Ada, Burgazada, Heybeliada and finally Bar 1/4 Ya 1/4 Kada. Ferry and ship services are provided by 6 different companies. In spring and autumn the islands are quieter and more pleasant, although the sea can be rough in spring, autumn and winter, and the islands are sometimes cut off from the outside world when the ferry services are cancelled due to storms and high waves. During winter, with the addition of the biting cold and the strong winds and the resulting ferry cancellations, the islands become almost deserted. As for cultural tourism, Bar 1/4 Ya 1/4 Kada happens to have the first and only city museum in Istanbul, the Museum of the Princes Islands in Ayar Nicola Bay. History. During the Byzantine period, princes and other royalty were exiled on the islands, and later members of the Ottoman Sultan's family were exiled there too, giving the islands their present name. They were taken by the Ottoman fleet during the siege of Constantinople in 1453. During the 19th century, the islands became a popular resort for Istanbul's wealthy, and Victorian-era cottages and houses are still preserved on the largest of the Princes Islands. The islands have become more and more ethnically Turkish in character due to the influx of wealthy Turkish jet-setters, a process which began in the first days of the Turkish Republic when the British Yacht Club on Bar 1/4 Ya 1/4 Kada was appropriated as Anadolu Kula 1/4 Bar 1/4, for Turkish parliamentarians to enjoy Istanbul in the summer. The islands are an interesting anomaly because they allow for a very rare, albeit incomplete, insight into a multicultural society in modern Turkey, possibly akin to the multicultural society that once existed during the Ottoman Empire in places such as nearby Istanbul Constantinople. Prior to the 1950s, each of the inhabited islands had significant communities of ethnic minorities of Turkey, which is now the case to a much smaller extent. Since the vast majority of the residents and visitors are Turkish, today their legacy is of cultural rather than demographic importance. Notable residents, many Turks fondly remember the islands as home to famous short story writer Sedef Adası plus or minus Yana plus or minus K and football legend Left Turkar 1/4 Apikovolt 1/4 Kandonyades. After Leon Trotsky was deported from the Soviet Union in February 1929, his first residing place in exile was a house in Bar 1/4 Ya 1/4 Kada, the largest of the Princes Islands, where Trotsky lived for 4 years between 1929 and 1933. Famous poet Nusret Zar plus or minus M. Hikmet attended the Naval Cadet School in Heybeliada between 1913 and 1918. Currently, one of Turkey's most famous writers, and philosopher Gökhan Kundioglu lives on the island. Bar 1/4 Ya 1/4 Kada. Bar 1/4 Ya 1/4 Kada is the largest of the 9 islands comprising the Prince's Islands in the Marmara Sea, close to Istanbul. As on the other islands, motorized vehicles except service vehicles are forbidden, so visitors explore the island by foot, by riding a bicycle, or in horse-drawn phaeton carriages which function like taxi cabs, also offering round the island sightseeing tours. A convent on Bar 1/4 Ya 1/4 Kada was the place of exile for the Byzantine empresses Irene, Euphrosyne, Theophano, Zoe and Anna Damascena. After his deportation from the Soviet Union in February 1929, Leon Trotsky also stayed for 4 years on Bar 1/4 Ya 1/4 Kada, his first station in exile. Princess Fahnisa Zede was born on the island. There are several historical buildings on Bar 1/4 Ya 1/4 Kada, such as the Ayayorgi Church and Monastery dating back to the 6th century, the Ayayos Demetrios Church, and the Hamidi Mosque built by Abdul Hamid II. Bar 1/4 Ya 1/4 Kada consists of 2 peaks. The one nearest the Iskal, Christos, is topped by the former Greek orphanage, a huge wooden building now in decay. In the valley between the 2 hills sit the church and monastery of Iaios Nikolaos and a former fairground called Luna Park. Visitors can take the small tour of the island by buggy, leading to this point, from where it is an easy climb to Ayayorgi, a tiny church with a cafe on the ground serving wine, chips and sausage sandwiches, this being part of the classic Ayayorgi experience. Heybeliada. Heybeliada is the second largest of the Prince's Islands in the Sea of Marmara. It is a neighborhood in the Adalar district of Istanbul. The large naval cadet school overlooks the jetty to the left as you get off the ferry. There are 2 interesting pieces of architecture on the grounds of the school. One is Kamari Otissa, the only remaining Byzantine church on the island, and more importantly the last church to be built before the conquest of Constantinople. The other is the grave of the second English ambassador to be sent to Constantinople by Elizabeth I of England, Edward Barton, who chose to live on Heybeli to escape the bustle of the city. To the right of the jetty lies the town with its bars and cafes, a hotel that stays open all year round, and many lovely wooden houses. At the top of the central mountain is an 11th century Greek Orthodox monastery. It housed the Hawkes Seminary, the main Greek Orthodox seminary in Turkey and theological seminary of the Ecumenical Patriarchate. The monastery attracts tourists from all over Greece and Turkey. To prevent the island from becoming polluted, the only motorized vehicles permitted on the island are service vehicles such as ambulances, fire trucks, police cars, and the like. The only forms of transport are by foot, horse and buggy and service transport. There is no airport. The only way of getting there is by boat. The winter population of the island is around 3,000, but in the summer, the owners of the summer houses return and the population swells to 10,000. The main summer attractions are small-scale open-air concerts sponsored by the local council, a swimming and fitness club next to the sea, and an annual Independence Day March, which is commemorated by a resident naval band touring the island. Burgazada. Burgazada is the 3rd largest of the islands, a single hill 2 kilometers across. Demetrius of Macedon, one of the Diadochi of Alexander the Great, built a fort here and named it after his father Antigonus I Monophthalmus. The island took this name, but today is generally known by the Turks simply as Burgaz. In 2003 Burgaz suffered a forest fire, losing 4 square kilometers of woodland. Burgaz is a common setting and even a major theme for writer Sedef Adası ±Yana ±K, where he also resided. Today, his residence is kept as a museum. At his favorite restaurant in Kalpazanka one will also find his bronze statue enjoying the view with a glass of raka ± freshly filled every day by the restaurant owners. Ka ± Nala ± Ada. Ka ± Nala ± Ada is the nearest island to the European and Asian side of Istanbul, about 12 kilometers to the south. This is one of the least forested islands, and the land has a reddish color from the iron and copper that has been mined here. This was the island most used as a place of exile in Byzantine times. In modern times, Kınalıada residents have been predominantly Armenian, giving it the highest density of Armenians living anywhere in Istanbul, albeit mainly in summer homes. During the summer, approximately 90% of the population on the island is Armenian. The islands are reachable by ferry services that depart from Kabatali on the European side. The voyage takes about 25 minutes by fast ferry and 40 minutes by regular ferry. Sedef Island. Sedef Island is one of the smallest islands of the archipelago, and has 108 private homes. The section that's open to the general public largely consists of a beach hamlet. The island is mostly private property and the current pine forests were largely planted by its owner Angstrom Esuval Menemenkiayu, who purchased the island in 1956 and also played an important role in the imposition of a strict building code to make sure that the island's nature and environment will be protected. He has forbidden the building of structures with more than 2 floors. The island's Greek name, Tabynthos, means turpentine, which suggests a significant presence of the turpentine tree or tabynth in earlier times. In 857 AD, Patriarch Ignatios of Constantinople was exiled to the island and imprisoned for 10 years before being re-elected as Patriarch in 867 AD. Yassa plus or minus Ada. Yassa plus or minus Ada was used by the Byzantines for sending prominent figures into exile. One such person was the Armenian Patriarch Narses, who was first sent to this island before being imprisoned at Bar 1/4 Ya 1/4 Kada in the 4th century AD. In the 11th century AD, the Byzantines used the island for political prisoners. The remains of the 4 underground prison cells from this period can still be seen. The Byzantines also built a monastery and church on the island. Yassa plus or minus Ada was captured by the Latin Crusaders during the Fourth Crusade in 1204. In 1857, Yassa plus or minus Ada was purchased by the British ambassador Henry Bulwer, brother of novelist Edward Bulwer Lytton, who built himself a mansion and a number of other structures to live undisturbed on this distant island. Henry Bulwer also organized agricultural production on the island to self-sustain his little realm at least to a certain degree, but later sold Yassa plus or minus Ada to the Khedive of Ottoman Egypt and Sudan, Ismail Pasha, who, however, didn't construct any new buildings and completely neglected the island. With the establishment of the Republic of Turkey in 1923, the island became a property of the Turkish state, and in 1947 Yassa plus or minus Ada was handed over to the Turkish Navy, which built several school buildings. Between 1960 and 1961, these school buildings became the venue for the trials of the members of the former ruling party, Democrat Party, after the military coup of 1960. Several of the defendants were sentenced to death, and 3 of these, including the former Prime Minister Adnan Menderes, were taken to a Degree plus or minus island and executed in 1961. After the end of the trials, Yassa plus or minus Ada was given back to the Turkish Navy and lessons continued to take place at the naval school buildings until 1978. In 1993, the island became the property of Istanbul University's Department of Marine Life and Sea Products, which used it for lessons and research. However, the strong winds on the island made life difficult for the students and eventually classes were held elsewhere. Today, the island is a favorite location for scuba diving schools like Bala plus or minus Kadam Tar 1/4 Kiy as well as amateur divers. Sivriada. Sivriada currently is deserted. The island was often used by Byzantine clerics as a distant place for peaceful worship, and by the Byzantine emperors as a convenient prison to detain prominent people whom they deemed troublesome. The first famous person to be imprisoned on the island by the order of Emperor Nikepel I was Plato of Sakaudian, the uncle of renowned cleric Theodoros Stauditz, for supporting his nephew in his conflict with the emperor. Other famous people who stayed in the island for religious and political reasons were Jeban, Basil Skleros, Niki Portzes, Patriarch John of Constantinople and Patriarch Michael II of Constantinople. The graves of those who died in the island during the Byzantine period can still be seen today. The ruins of a Roman settlement and a 9th-century Byzantine monastery can still be seen on the shore, close to the fisherman's shelter, a small wharf which is often used by yachts. The most important buildings on the island were built in the 9th century AD, including a church, a chapel dedicated to religious martyrs, a monastery on the eastern end and a cistern in the center of the island. In 1911 the mayor of Istanbul ordered the stray dogs in the streets to be gathered and deposited on Sivriada, but a severe earthquake which immediately followed the event was perceived as a punishment by God for abandoning the dogs, and they were transported back to the city. Kara ±K Island. Kara ±K Island, is located between the islands of Burgazada and Heybeliada. Kara ±K Adası is officially administered by the Burgazada neighborhood in the Adalar district of Istanbul. It is the second smallest of the Prince's Islands, with an area of 0.006 kilometers to Tavşan Island. Tavşan Adası is the smallest of the Prince's Islands, with an area of 0.004 kilometers to. References. External links. Prince's Islands Virtual Website 360° Official Website, District Governor's Official Website, District Municipalities Official Website, Prince Islands Travel Guide from Wiki Voyage, Istanbul's Isle of Diversity from the Christian Science Monitor, by Yigal Schleifer, July 28, 2005, The Islands That Refuse to Motorize Sustainable Transport, an ITDP publication, by Yakov Garb, Fall 2002, Interactive Maps, Multimap.com, FallingRain.com, Istanbul Islands Turkish Daily News, Cornucopia Special Edition on the Prince's Islands, Paradise Lost? Prince's Islands information, know more about Prince's Islands.